Welcome to Unix Trading. Let's get into Friday's recap, which is going to be the 2nd of January 2026. Market open in the morning around 8 o'clock or so, or before 8 o'clock, before 9:30 actually. I took a first trade with silver, which silver break hold that Wednesday high, and I entered this trade right here, even though I noticed a decrease in volume, but I know price will likely push up because we from a slick 5-minute inverted in shoulders in this area, which is set up in my playbook. And price make that move. I entered the trade, but I exited the trade too early for a $300 gain. And I was so much worried because volume decreased, so I didn't want to lose $1,500. So I exited the trade too early and leave $3,500 on the table. What I'm trying to say is a lot of times you have to be patient and give the trade some time in order for it to be able to hit your target. If you're in the trade over analyzing and fear and can't control your emotions, you can leave a lot of money on the table by just exiting out of the trade too soon. Okay. And my next setup that I missed out was the pullback. Okay, we had a pullback right here, and we have a 200 MA and the VWAP crossing over the 200 MA down, which signified downtrend. I overlooked it because of the ATR. I think the ATR was wide too spread, so I didn't take the trade, so I missed out on that trade. And also we have an expanded rising wedge, which the top part was expanded, so I wasn't comfortable in taking the trade, and I left money on the table. Actually, let me see how much money I left on the table. That was going to be $4,150 I left on the table if I would have let it stretch out and hit my target and respect the 1 hour rule, okay, which I will talk about later on in the next recaps. And let's go back real quick into my first trade. I didn't respect and accept my stop loss, and also I didn't respect the 1 hour rule, which was going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, almost 1 hour, which a lot of times price will take time for it to hit your target within that 1 hour window. Okay, so I didn't respect it, and now I took a trade down here, which is going to be the inverse head and shoulders, and I lost $350, being I didn't want to lose $1,700 on this trade. If you look at my stop loss, it's going to be $1,700 to $800, so I put a quick stop loss right there. If the price come and hit it, I'll probably lose $200 to $350, and which I really took that loss because of price fail, right? It could have been this where price just hold and continue going up. I could have made my money, which I was anticipating to reach only $300 to $400 to make about $4,000 in profit, right? And but price fell. It was just a little tricky day that day. And price came back and reclaimed this time, but I doubted the trade because of volume decrease. And which, by the way, I found out that a lot of times when volume decrease, that might not be the case. Just take the trade, it will likely go up. So the second time price came and pulled back again, and I left $4,000 on the table right there. I couldn't take the trade. Okay, what I'm saying is when you're in a trade, you have to stop over analyzing and thinking that you know what's going to happen in the trade. Okay, you will lose money. Don't overanalyze. And when the setup happens, don't overanalyze. Take the trade and just work out. Respect and accept your stop loss, cut it off, and exit out the trade. So for this setup right here, one setup which I missed out, the pullback in my playbook and the crossover, which I would have made a lot of money off that trade. I think that was about $6,000 or $9,000 trade, $9,000 trade. So that's one I messed up on. The rising wedge, I messed up $4,000, and going up back again, I messed up another $4,000 in profit. So 3 trades right here, 3 solid trade, which would have let me pass my AVOP and even make some money for the day. So let's move on to the next trade that I messed up again, which is going to be NQ, the next ticker. So going into NQ, and what happened with NQ is I was also overanalyzing, right? I see that we break all this major demand right there, which was major supply now, okay? And price came all the way up and volume decreased. That would have been my entry points. But the reason being, I was waiting more so for price to pull back all the way to this previous low because I didn't want to risk $1,000, 1,000 some $100 as my stop loss. So I didn't want to get an early entry because a lot of times price will come back and hit the VWAP crossover. So I left money on the table. This is because it didn't meet my entry criteria. It's okay a lot of times if it didn't meet your entry criteria. So just don't worry about taking the trade. And I didn't take the trade, right? And price came back again to form an inverse head and shoulders right now at this demand area, which was a beautiful demand right here in the 1 hour. So price hit that level, we make a move all the way for a couple of days, and price be held for a couple of days, and we came back to retest that area. We bounced 1, 2, three times and fail and reclaim back again. That hammer or doji hammer looking candle right there would have been my entry points right there in order for me to enter. And the reason being why I didn't enter again, I was over analyzing and judging that volume decrease. Another mental mistake again. I left money on the table. You see that? And this, I think I left about $2,000 on the table. That's a lot of money now I left on the table now. A lot of times when you make mistakes, it's like that, mental mistakes, they cost you. That's what I'm trying to point out when you overanalyze to take a trade, okay? So now let's go into ES. I made a lot of mistakes too on ES. And ES, same mistake now. In this case, we have a pullback on ES on this supply area, right? Which was a demand. And we have a pullback in that area. Volume decreased a couple of times. But what I was waiting for, I was waiting more so for price to hit NQ, for NQ to make that move, hit the crossover, because I was worried that NQ might take it all the way up to the top right there and I will lose money. So I didn't enter the trade and price failed. And this was my fault because we hit the previous low, right? The most recent low that we had that we break. We came back and retested. So that would have been an entry point for me in order for me to capitalize off, at least make $1,000 off that trade. I didn't capitalize off it. See that? And my stop loss would have only probably been $200 or $250. Once we break all that, I'll exit out the trade. And we also have a crossover on this pullback. So that was a good trade for me in order for me to take. We had a bounce right here, but I was not too sure about the bounce. And I didn't take the trade. So I was overanalyzing also on that bounce. But price make that move, which was $1,000 move. Price came and bounced a couple of times on this major level right here because a lot of times price will come back and retest this area. Now, the cool thing about it is to form also a slick inverse head and shoulders in the 5 minutes. With the 5 minutes tricky when it comes to inverse head and shoulders, okay? See that? Form that. But you will not know because you're waiting for the perfect inverse head and shoulders a lot of times. And that's what kills a lot of traders. Or we can say break and reclaim failed. And I missed out on this trade because I was worried that the price might reject right up here. Oh, what if it happens? But we also have a slick hammer looking candle right here, which sellers try to push price down and buyers step it up and we close, right? And that would have been an entry point for me. And we also have a false trend line break, which is in my playbook, right? I call this the first trend line break. Price break it. I was over analyzing. Also, I didn't take the trade. So I missed out and left money on the table. Again, by over analyzing and judging. That's $1,500 because I was waiting for price might come back and retest. That's a lie. It might not come back to retest. So just take the risk. And let me see how much was going to be my stop loss. $300, 300 and something dollars in order for me to make at least $1,500, which wasn't bad at all. Okay. What I'm saying is when price action happen, don't overanalyze. Just take the trade because you never know what's going to happen and you cannot predict the market. So that's one thing that hurting traders. And this is something that I've been working on for the past 1-2 years. But by me journaling on a chat like this, like our journal, which I want you guys to learn from, is going to help you greatly because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you'll be able to transparently see your mistakes. Okay. It's like mirroring yourself and be able to see your mistakes on the chat. And you can use this recap with another screen. Take a screenshot and just go through it while you're trading. You could be watching at them, looking at them to minimize your mistakes. I'm not saying this mistake's not going to happen over time because you're human, because when you have a lot going on, mistakes will happen. Trust me. Okay. And now let's move on to the next tickers that I make mistakes on. Let's talk about gold. Coming into gold, mistake I make again, we have a reclaim, a failed reclaim, okay? Fail and reclaim in this area, which was going to be this major demand area, right? See how price came retest to make that huge move for a couple of days. Those are the interesting area where people are interested in to buy most of the time if you're looking in 1 hour, okay? And now we fail, make that move like we're going up, price fail, right? And we came back again, we'll reclaim it this time. This would be my entry point. But I didn't come to the market prepared, so I left $2,500 on the table. And I was over analyzing also. I wasn't too sure because volume dropped. But this would have been a sweet spot for me to enter in order for me to be able to capitalize on this move all the way down and respect the 1 hour rule. We enter right at 9:55 and price hit the target at 11:15. So that's about 1 hour and some change. Okay. Came back again, form a slick inverse head and shoulders again, which also in my playbook a lot of times in the 5 minutes. And where we trading at the demand. This whole area right here is the demand. Since price came, we bounced right there. We came back and formed like a inverse head and shoulders in the 1 hour, right? You see that inverse head and shoulders in the 1 hour? That's what we're forming in the 1 hour right there, okay? And we came back again in the 5 minutes when price hit this level right there. will form an inverse head and shoulders in the 5 minutes. You don't have to wait for the perfect inverse head and shoulders. You have to be able to just read the story, okay? But again, I was over analyzing, oh, whether price is gonna make it, or are we gonna be able to sustain and make that trade? And I was over analyzing, and price came back again because of volume decrease a couple of times. I was over analyzing and I missed out on that beautiful trade right there, which I could have at least scalp and capitalize and make up for my loss and make some profit that day. But I didn't take the trade. So that's would have been a 1,000 some change, or I wouldn't probably hold it for that long, though, to be honest. A $1,000 trade. Because price can retest as soon as we make that move right there, I would have probably exit out the trade. But again, I have an opportunity where volume decrease, but I overlooked the market and just gave up on the market. So giving up too soon, and this pretty much comes from a lot of over analyzing, because these are all setups in my playbook and I trade them every day. But it's just that day that I just couldn't function. It happens. And I'm not gonna let it beat me down, or I just gonna learn from my mistakes and watch my recap and come back this evening, which is gonna be Sunday 6 o'clock. And in the morning, which is Monday, probably come back strong. Okay. And last but not the least, let's go into platinum. So with platinum also in this area where we form a high or low, break hold, price will come back and retest this area right there where I have this yellow line. And price came in form of inverse head and shoulders in that area. And guess what I didn't do? I was overlooking at the trade, right? Which actually this would have been my entry point. This area is right here would have been my entry point, right? And I couldn't take the trade. Price came with break hold, came back or failed, reclaim back again. And this would have been a sweet spot for me to take the trade and hold on to the trade, or maybe take profit right here at the top. Price came back again, volume decrease on that shoulders. Let me go ahead and show it to you guys right there. Again, you don't have to wait for the perfect entry. You can read the story, volume decrease, and this would have been a sweet spot for me to enter also, but I overlooked it, over analyzing and judging. So overall, Friday, I left a lot of money on the table, and just trading enough for me to make $15,000-$20,000 in profit if I would have consistently believe in the setup and just take it and don't overanalyze and just thinking for the market, which I do sometimes. Sometimes it's just I overthink for the market and thinking that I know what's going to happen. And that's one thing that hurt traders, especially beginner traders. But me, based off my experience, I learned that a lot of times when you overthink, you lose money. But it happened to me sometimes, and I have to hold myself accountable for that. Okay, that's why I do my recap and journal in the charts, so that way I could be able to look at my recaps and learn from my mistakes. And I hope y'all will just do the same thing too, and just learn and follow me and watch me what I do as far as my journaling and the learning from my mistake. And I watch my journals when I'm trading. I look at my recaps, I take a screenshot and look at my recaps and watch it, and it helps me. It helped minimize making all these mistakes over time. And hopefully we all can learn and grow from this channel, and I also can be improved to be able to squeeze more money from the market and become more profitable, because a lot of times this mistake will hold you back. I have a good trade, why just not let it ride? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 minutes, almost 1 hour. So that 1 hour rule, that's something also for just that I implement in order for me to be able to stay in the trade. Because a lot of my setups, if you look at them, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, it takes about 30 minutes to 1 hour, 1 hour, one and a half hour for it to hit my target. Because the way I trade, I'm always trying to get the bigger moves. I'm not trying to scalp. Okay, all right. And this is it. And once again, welcome to Unix Trading, and thank you for watching and learning from my mistakes, and watch me make my mistakes.